This is the first video of a 3-video trilogy where I'll be diving into how to clear the endgame in Honkai Star Rail. This video, as you can tell, is going to be going over Memory of Chaos, and as the endgame mode that people struggle with the most recently, MOC is actually going to be the real test of your account, and honestly, it's actually not just about having the newest units, but it's also about building smart, planning your account well, which characters you're going to go for, the type of stuff, and understanding how the game actually works. So let's just break this down in a way that makes sense for every player, whether you're free to play, a light spender, a beginner, a veteran, dolphin, all that kind of stuff. So first up, pulling strategy matters a lot. If you're constantly pulling for units that aren't meta, trust me, you're gonna feel it when you're trying to clear MOC. That doesn't mean you can't pull for whoever you like, but just know that skipping some of the strong units or over investing into one role, like getting every single Harmony unit instead of going for some of the newer DPSs, can actually mess up your account balance. Reruns of older DPSs are almost always just gonna be not worth it. People believe Honkai Star Rail suffers from power creep. It doesn't, but that's something that I'll talk about in another video. But the underlying issue is actually archetype meta, which shifts constantly, and what worked 4 patches ago as a result of this might not work with the current enemy scaling and meta. Let's be real, you're just gonna have to skip characters you like sometimes. It sucks, but limited pulls means that you have to prioritize certain characters, and that means thinking long term as well. And let me just say this right now, bro, do not sleep on the Herda. I'm gonna say this right now, as of version 3.2, she is literally a staple in every single account because of how useful she is, not just in AoE content, but just in every scenario other than single target, because of just her sheer damage multipliers and the fact that she is, of course, an AoE damage dealer. I'll touch upon the AoE content more in my Pure Fiction video, but for now, we're talking about MOC here. She'll actually carry more than you expect, which offsets Herda from the rest of the meta DPS units when she first came out, because once again, her sheer damage multipliers are through the roof. Oh, this is about to be crazy. No, y'all are not ready for this. 1.5 mil! 1.5 mil! Oh my god! Oh my god! As for general DPS units though, you don't always need high investment. An E0 S0 DPS, as you just saw, is enough in most cases if your team is well built. And yes, this does apply to Firefly, which I'll talk about later. On the other hand, supports like Renmei or Sparkle have way more longevity. Replacing them with newer units like Robin or Sunday usually just isn't worth it unless you're missing something critical from your DPS's kit. Like for example, if you're still using Jingmen and you have Sparkle, then yes, Sunday is going to be a much better pick. But overall, it's not worth replacing Sparkle with Sunday if you already have a well-built Sparkle and all that. Lastly, many players fall for the trap of pulling meta units with no one to support them or for them to support no one. Units like Face Shao, Firefly, Acheron, right? The top 3, the big 3 of 2024. They're powerful for sure, but if you don't have the right supports, they just won't shine. One of the biggest lies players fall for is thinking individual character strength matters more than team synergy. Apart from the Herda, that's just not true. Your team needs to function as a unit. DPS, support, sustain, debuff, buff, it all needs to work together. And yes, going sustainless is actually viable sometimes, depending on the current MLC blessing. Like in this current cycle, actually, the MLC buffs allow for healing through other means. So sometimes dropping your healer for more just firepower is actually going to be the right play. In the version 3.2 MLC, my Herda can usually clear the Flame Reaper in about 4 cycles. However, when I replaced Aventurine with Tribi, that went down to just a mere 2 cycles. And yes, everybody on this team, as you can see, is E0 S0 with the exception of Sparkle. Everyone knows that team synergies matter, but remember to just switch things around and try something new. Had I never made the decision to run Herda sustainless, I probably still wouldn't have 36 starred this MOC, I'll be honest. Just remember to make sure you're always adapting to the current blessing, the different enemy types, and the environment of the current MOC cycle as a whole, instead of making an attempt to brute force the same team comp every single run, regardless of whatever meta we are in right now. Next thing, Your account growth should focus on coverage, not just power. That means having different tools for different roles and archetypes, not 5 characters that do the same thing. For example, if you already have Fei Xiao, do not pull for more single target damage dealers, even if Boo Hill is your husbando. I'm telling you, he just simply isn't worth it unless you are already at a state where endgame is no longer considered a challenge. If you've got the hurt, which that will probably never happen, but back back to the topic I hit. If you've got the Herda, or you have casters, or you have both actually, you're good on AoE. You will literally never need a limited AoE damage dealer again, or at the very least for the next like 5 years. My D is basically just a flashier Jingliu, who is getting buffed in version 3.4 anyways, so there's not much of a reason to pull for him now anyways. If you've got Sparkle, there's no reason to go after Sunday, and vice versa. Aventurine plus a strong sustain like Fu Xuan, Luocha, Ho, all of the above, for whatever reason, if you have all of them, means you are set on sustains for life. No limited abundance unit past that point, even if you have just 2 of those abundance units, are just really necessary. Even Topaz, as much as I personally love her, okay, don't bother using her for Fei Xiao or even pulling for her, since Moza and March 7th the Hunt already exist. I see an abundance of players honestly making the mistake of pulling for multiple characters with similar or identical archetypes, which in Honkai Star Rail is going to be the best way to shoot yourself in the foot. A matter of fact, I will go off script and give you an example right now. Firefly feels like she fell off right now because we're in an AoE meta, of course, but the reason why Rappa feels so much better right now isn't because of power creep, and it's not even because of HP inflation, which I will talk about later, but the main reason why is, of course, we're in an AoE meta right now, and a character like Rappa can do what Firefly does, but her damage multipliers aren't any different. It's just she attacks a broader range of enemies, plus she also has Fugue to actually buff her as well, which Fugue can work with Firefly as well, just not as efficiently, making Rappa the better pick significantly right now with both DPSs at E0 S0, because Rappa is AoE and Firefly is not. I understand that she can do blast damage, she attacks 3 enemies, but a lot of the time, the adjacent enemies around the boss, which you want to use Firefly on the boss, will not be weakness broken, you won't be doing any damage to them as a result. So typically Firefly will be a single target damage dealer. She's like a pseudo hunt character, so just keep that in mind. Right now Rappa is significantly better than Firefly with both DPSs at E0 S0, but that can change, and I bet you that likely will change. So getting back on script, what actually makes MOC so damn difficult? So let's just kill off a myth right now. It's not all about power creep. Yes, it does exist, right? Sadie has been power crept by Fei Xiao, Jingliu has been power crept by the more modern DPS units, the ones that can do, AoE damage or just blast damage at the very least, because they just have higher damage multipliers. I get it, right? Despite that though, Jingliu is actually getting a buff in version 3.4, so she will rise back up in the meta, but nonetheless, the power creep is slow, especially when it comes to supports and sustained units. One of the big problems with MOC right now is HP inflation and the constant shift in meta alongside the impact of these meta shifts. New enemies come with higher and higher HP pools, and different mechanics in the game throws in blessings and buffs that really favor certain characters, which will be the newer characters, of course, and that's where the illusion of power creep comes from. You don't just want a broad character roster, although that will be great. You also want broad character functionality, like I just said. If you're too focused on one playstyle or team comp, you're gonna get stuck. Also, getting Islands or signature light cones for your support units can actually go a long way. Speaking as somebody who has E3 S1 Sparkle, and as a result of that factor alone have skipped Robin and Sunday, DPS units still will fall off faster than any other playstyle, right? But supports, they'll stick around for years. That being said though, don't overdo it, right? Some light cones, like for example Tribbies, and most character Eidolons like past E1 or E2 just aren't even necessary, even if you're min-maxing. But the primary source for MOC's difficulty, and I've touched on this already, isn't just the constant shift in meta, but also the impact that they have on already existing characters. I stated just now that Jingliu has been power kept, which she has. However, back in version 3.1's MLC, I actually managed to 5-cycle it with her with relative ease. Matter of fact, it was actually my very first attempt, which I even made a video clearing it, and I even showed that there. Now, why this is, I actually don't know. Typically, my E0S1 Jingliu just won't be enough to 36-star MLC with my characters. She can 35-star it, but not 36-star it. But I will say though, this was the same patch that Mighty came out, who works actually very fundamentally similar to Jingliu. It's actually quite apparent, especially considering that the last DPS to come out was 3 months ago, that this MLC caters towards Mighty, as always with DPSs, allowing for Jingliu to clear it as well, since like I mentioned just now, they're very similar as DPS units. But that is going to be it for this video. I did get a little sidetracked there just now, but just remember, broaden the character. You can clear MLC with all E0 S0 characters. Every single character I use in MLC, with the sole exception of Sparkle, is E0 S0, and I am still max starring it. The trick, I'm telling you, the trick literally is to just broaden the amount of characters that you have and their functionality. There is absolutely no reason why you should have both Rappa and Firefly on your account, considering that they are the only 2 super break damage dealers in the game right now. I understand that one is AoE and one is more single target, but when one falls off, the other will fall off as well. Super break isn't everything, it never has been. That was never Hoyo versus strategy, so yes, you're gonna have to pull for a lot of units, but you can still make do with older units, like for example my E0S0 or my E0S1 Jingliu clear with the more modern MLC. So just consider everything that I said in this video. Just try to have different characters that can do different things because of the constant shifts in meta in Honkai Star Rail. But last thing before I finally end off the video, I do want to say that what makes MLC more difficult than the other game modes, in my opinion, above all else, is just the buffs that you don't get. Pure Fiction is so easy with Grit, but Apocalyptic Shadow is a little bit more difficult. But what makes them more easy than MLC actually is the buffs that you can choose for your team comms. So just remember that MLC, you don't get to choose your buffs, you just get one little blessing for the current DPSs, which can really throw you off. But that's about it for this video. If you do what I said, you can be like me and fully clear MLC with all E0 S0 characters, with the exception of Sparkle, of course. Not everyone has E3 S1 Sparkle, but that's about it. I'll see you. Goodbye.